is part of Cable in the Classroom, a service of the cable television industry and your local cable company.
You're watching the Weather Classroom. Bill Keneely here alongside Dennis Smith today, and today's topic, dealing with tropical systems, will run the gamut from the tropical depression through the tropical storm, right on up to the dreaded hurricane classification. In addition, we'll touch on the storm surge. Some of the worst aspects of the hurricane itself is actually the landfalling storm surge and that wall of water which causes a lot of flooding on the coast. In addition, we'll recap the 1993 hurricane season. Again, our three classifications are tropical depression, tropical storm, and hurricane. Prior to that, we do have a tropical disturbance. Usually you have a cluster of thunderstorms, then you begin to acquire circulation. If you get that circulation strong enough, anywhere higher than 39 miles per hour up to about 73 miles per hour, the wind circulating around, that would be classified as a tropical storm. And there's your hurricane with winds better than 75 miles per hour, the core of the strongest wind right around that eye wall. With more on hurricane formation, here's Jim Cantore.
Hurricanes can be very destructive and deadly. Hurricane Hugo caused nearly $10 billion worth of damage and 49 lives lost. Andrew ripped through South Florida and Louisiana, causing an estimated $30 billion worth of damage, and 54 people lost their lives. The storms normally pick up in intensity as they steam across the ocean. A hurricane is a vast heat engine. The fuel is the warm ocean water. It feeds heat and moisture into the air, getting sucked into the center of the storm. Some of the incoming air rises into the spiral rain bands that surround the storm's core. As warm air reaches the eye wall, it rises rapidly and condenses into clouds of rain. The rising air releases tremendous amounts of heat into the atmosphere and creates violent winds. In this way, the hurricane's engine is constantly refeeding itself, concentrating its power in the wall of clouds surrounding the storm's eye. The eye wall contains the hurricane's most destructive power. The winds can cause extensive damage, as witnessed during Hurricane Hugo and Andrew. Jim Cantore, the Weather Channel.
We've talked about a hurricane and how it forms. Now that we've got a hurricane, what's the best way to analyze it, to look at it? Got to take it up in a plane. Let's find out more in this from Jim Cantore.
Roger, sir. We don't expect to see it's got clear weather all the way out. There's a little undercast. That's about all.
Cloud cover is sparse as one of the C-130 Storm Tracker planes based in Biloxi makes a reconnaissance training flight. Preparation starts in the early afternoon as the 8-man crew goes through a detailed briefing. The mission can be dangerous, but the crew has complete confidence in their transportation.
C-130 was built for cargo transport, short field landings, and it gives us a good capability for flying into a storm. We fly directly through the side of the storm, penetrating the eye wall.
When in the air, the plane sends information to the Hurricane Center on the progression of storms by dropping sophisticated measuring devices. As the cylinder descends through the clouds, it measures the air temperature, pressure, wind speed and direction, and sea surface temperature.
That information is used to help them determine where the actual storm is, what the storm is doing. We are data collectors. We don't try to predict where the storm is going. We simply collect the data for them.
The plane and crew are always on standby, and they are a vital part of the information gathering process to help save lives and property in the event of a landfalling hurricane. I'm Jim Cantore, the Weather Channel.
All hurricanes are classified on a scale from 1 to 5. You can see they range from 74 to 95 with a Category 1 to the monster hurricanes with winds of better than 155 miles per hour. With more on the scale, here's Dale Eck.
Hurricane Keneely devastated the Mississippi Gulf Coast in 1969. Winds were estimated in excess of 200 miles an hour. Hurricane Jerry hit the Texas coast in 1989, a much weaker storm, but it still managed to cause damage. There is a way to measure the strength of a hurricane. It's called the Saffir-Simpson scale. It is based on the factors which combine to give a hurricane destructive power. These factors include the level of the air pressure, the speed of the winds, the amount of water pushed onto the land by the storm, known as the storm surge. The scale ranges from 1 to 5, 1 being a minimal and 5 being catastrophic. It is the storm surge which primarily causes the damage and deaths in hurricanes. By knowing the Saffir-Simpson scale rating for a hurricane and by listening closely to hurricane watches and warnings, you can protect your property and your life. I'm Dale Eck, the Weather Channel.
One of the most #1 damager, according to a hurricane, is not only the winds and the flooding, but also emphasis on the storm surge. Here's more.
As a hurricane approaches the coast, its winds drive water shoreward. Once the edge of the storm reaches the shallow waters of the continental shelf, hurricane-force winds push the water onto the shore. At first, the water level climbs slowly, but as the eye approaches, water rises rapidly. Waves traveling on top of the surge hammer away at structures built on the shoreline.
I don't think that the average person is quite aware of how powerful moving water is. The cubic yard of water weighs about 1,700 pounds, and it's almost incompressible. You might just as well be hit almost with a solid object as to have this water smashing against a structure on the beach.
Charlie Welsh, the Weather Channel.
We all remember the hurricane season of '93, packing a pretty mean punch with Hurricane Emily, but for a complete recap on the season, here's Dennis Smith.
The 1993 Atlantic hurricane season had only 8 named storms. In an average year, there are 10. The first storm of the year developed on June 18th and was Tropical Storm Arlene. The storm caused heavy flooding in Mexico, coastal Texas, western Louisiana, and Arkansas. 6 people were killed and damage was estimated at over $22 million. Tropical Storm Brett formed in the Atlantic east of the Windward Islands. Winds and heavy rain led to extensive flooding and mudslides around Caracas, Venezuela. 184 people died from Brett. Tropical storms Cindy and Dennis did not affect the U.S. mainland. Emily was the only major hurricane of the season. It formed in the same location as Hurricane Andrew, so the storm caused anxiety along the eastern coastline. The storm approached the Outer Banks of North Carolina with winds of up to 135 miles per hour.
People have already been evacuated. They're riding out the storm. Areas are boarded up right now, and all they are is just sitting it out and waiting with it, as we are with the Weather Channel, as the storm continues to pass now directly to our east and continuing to move parallel to the coastline on off towards the north. Jeff?
The storm did stay just east of Cape Hatteras, but residents living on the island felt the wrath of Emily.
Now, the main devastation that we had from Hurricane Emily was really caused when we got strong west winds across Pamlico Sound after the hurricane had actually moved a little bit north. And what that did, it carried some very high water into Hatteras Island, and it got 10 feet above sea level on the sound side. Now on the ocean side, the tides were much less, only 2 to 3 feet. But the main damage there on Hatteras Island was really caused by this storm surge that came in from Pamlico Sound.
Over $35 million worth of damage was done, and 3 people lost their lives from Emily. Hurricane Gert brought heavy rain and flash flooding to the southwestern Caribbean. The storm made landfall near Tampico, Mexico. Gert killed 76 people. The last storm of the season, Harvey, stayed well out in the Atlantic. Although the '93 hurricane season will be remembered as being relatively uneventful, the storms killed 280 people and caused millions of dollars worth of damage. I'm Charlie Welsh, the Weather Channel.
Thank you, Charlie. Again, a review of our tropical depression kicking in with less than 39-mile-an-hour winds. When you go from 39 to 73, we classify that as tropical storm, and hurricane wants to get higher than that, over 74 miles an hour. That's our emphasis on tropical systems. If you'd like to find out more about tropical systems, we refer you to the Weather Channel Classroom book, Chapter 12, The Temperamental Tropics, to learn more.
The Weather Classroom is a production of the Weather Channel. To order the companion book for the Weather Classroom, send $9.95 plus $3.95 shipping and handling to the Weather Channel Education Services, 2600 Cumberland Parkway, Atlanta, Georgia, 30339.